Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I will show you how to use the Bite Splint module, and additionally, we will create a snoring bite. We have our upper jaw and our lower jaw positioned with an opened bite for the standard Bite Splint. Additionally, for the snoring bite, the lower jaw is already in an opened and protruded position. We start off by creating our dental project. For the upper jaw, we select Bite Splint and leave the material and parameter settings as they are by default. For the lower jaw, we choose Antagonist for now, but we'll switch this later in the modifier when we move on to the snoring bite. Once selected, we hit Apply and then open up the modifier software. As usual, we select our logged-in user profile. We also pick the appropriate license package for this workflow. In this case, the models have already been aligned, so we can just click Yes to continue. Here we see our initial situation laid out clearly. We can skip the very first step entirely, since we don't need to place or add any teeth. We just click on Next to proceed. The Bite Splint module is already pre-selected because we chose it back in the archive. So we can simply double-click on Bite Splint or click on Next to dive right in. Now we have the option to define our insert direction for the block-out process. We change the block-out angle and allow some undercuts to make the Bite Splint nicely retentive. Then we apply these settings and the blockout will be generated. As seen in the previous video about the mock-up, we head into modeling, we smooth the interdental areas and deeper parts of the fissures. This prevents the Bite Splint from jamming too aggressively into those spots. Once that's all smoothed nicely, we click Next. Now comes the fun part, drawing our margin line. We can activate the undercuts visualization if needed, so we clearly see the retentive areas. Up to the canines, I usually follow the cervical line just like this for optimal hold. In the anterior region, I create a straight line. But of course, there are many different ways to design Bite Splints for upper or lower jaws. It's all very individual based on your patient's needs. We will also choose to include the second molar. We continue drawing the margin line all around. In the anterior region here, once again I'm staying a little bit shorter for better comfort, and at the canine, I go back down once more. Okay, now our margin is complete and we can focus on the parameters. This includes the occlusal thickness with the default 2.5 mm and the peripheral thickness. Additionally, you can also modify the smoothing level and minimal thickness of your splint. In this example, we're leaving all parameters at their standard. We just click Apply. Perfect! Now we have our Bite Splint generated and can immediately see the contacts with the lower jaw, which means our occlusal thickness was enough. But if needed, we can tweak parameters a bit more and regenerate. Or use the brush tool to flatten specific areas. For instance, in the posterior region, I can mark it with the brush tool. Then, define the allowed antagonist impression, say 0.25 mm for example. Regenerate, and those areas are now nicely flattened with the precise impression. We activate the virtual articulator for our dynamic adaptation. First, we make sure not to go too far, so we block the protrusion at 5 millimeters. That should be plenty. In this demo, I'll input some medium values for the articulator table like 45, 30, and 30 degrees. If you want to know more about the virtual articulator, make sure to check out our Lesson 2 here on YouTube. Now we start the simulation. Once it's done, we switch over to modeling so we get the possibility to cut our movements. The inner part is now pre-cut automatically by the blockout model. Now, we just need to remove the excess on the outer side using Cut Dynamic. But we still have the flexibility to add material where needed, and as you see, the software automatically cuts any intrusions in real time, giving us the chance to smooth the surface without having to rerun the articulator. This also lets us ensure the protrusion and canine guidance is fully supported all the way by adding material. Now your canine guide is perfectly supported throughout the range. Then we smooth the rest for a professional finish. If you want a little more indent or depth in spots, simply add material first. And we're done. Now click on Finish and get the option to leave holes open or close them. In this case, we close them with the minimal thickness of 0.5 millimeters. Now our Bite Splint is fully generated and ready. Just click Save to store it in the project folder. Back in the archive, our scene and dataset are updated and ready for milling or printing. Now, let's jump back to our scene and continue working to design a snoring bite. I no longer need this Bite Splint object right now, so I right-click in the group window and delete it. We also do the same for the current lower jaw. Right-click on the antagonist and erase it. Let's close the articulator window. Then, head back to the archive once more to grab the other lower jaw in the opened and protruded position and drag it into the scene. We define it as the main scan for the lower jaw. Click Apply to lock it in. Now we can head straight back into the Bite Splint module. The software remembers the blockout from the upper jaw earlier, so all we need now is to create the blockout for this new lower jaw. Set the insert direction. All previous parameters that we changed are already saved. Apply them and continue. Once again, quickly jump to modeling to smooth any areas where the bite might feel a little too tight. Then click on Next to advance. Okay, now instead of a standard bite splint, we switch over to the snoring bite mode. We draw our margins once again and activate the distance view for precision. Quickly draw the full margin line for the snoring bite all the way around. Once complete, double-click to close the line neatly. Now, instead of hitting apply right away like with the Bite Splint, we also need to draw the margin on the lower jaw. So we activate the lower jaw at the bottom left and start clicking. Once both margins are perfectly drawn and ready, we can click on Apply. The software generates two splints and merges them together at the center. We jump straight to modeling. The snoring mode is already active with the cutting plane. Before we do the separation though, I like to freeform the area a bit first. Add some material and smooth everything out nicely. Use Shift plus Scroll to adjust the brush size quickly. Control plus Scroll changes the strength of your tool. For tricky areas like these gaps, press Ctrl and left mouse to fill them up first before adding and smoothing material. Okay, now that this side is done, switch to the other side. Do exactly the same. Add material and smooth thoroughly. Now our snoring bite is fully smoothed and looking excellent. We can now proceed to the cutting phase. Click on Edit to fine-tune the cutting plane. I usually start by lowering the central point a touch, then move the edge points right into the middle of the bite. Once set, adjust the frontal point slightly. You can also left-click and drag the entire plane up or down. We aim to copy the natural occlusal curve using this tool. In this case, go a little deeper centrally. On this side, raise it just a bit higher. We always ensure the center is deeper to create that ideal bowl shape. This is where the upper bite will fit comfortably later. Additionally, you can use the precise movement controls for the plane if needed. Once everything's positioned perfectly, click Apply. Great! Now our snoring bite has been cut into two separate objects. We can continue by loading our needed attachments. For this case, I'm using Zirkonzahn attachments. We have versions specifically for the vacuum-formed splints, and others optimized for milling and 3D printing. Choose your preferred ones, then press Ctrl to also add the visualizer. I'm going with the 22mm size here. Position them by left-clicking on the Snoring Bite. Rotate the attachments with Control plus left mouse for alignment. Place it on the upper canine and lower first molar. They should not be sticking out too far for the patient's comfort. Make sure to activate both upper bite and lower bite and then click Add for them to be merged with the Snoring Bite. Our attachments are now successfully added. We can apply extra material if desired around them. The attachment areas will always be automatically cut out precisely. For example, if I add material here, the software auto-cuts the excess. You can always add more material in spots needing extra strength. Now repeat for the other side. The same attachment is loaded. Position it symmetrically on this side too. Use precise movement controls for a more controlled placement if needed. Okay, once positioned ideally, click Add again. Here too, smooth a little to build strength around the attachments. One last attachment type, the breathing gaps. These are small blocks you can adjust freely. Make them bigger, smaller, move in or out as needed. They subtract from the Snoring Bite Splint to allow the patient to breathe comfortably during sleep. We always have visualizers for the attachments too. Make them a bit more opaque for better visibility. And now our complete Snoring Bite is ready to go. Click on Finish, and choose to leave the holes open as I usually prefer. Now we have our final Snoring Bite generated. Click Save, and once again, everything will be saved in the Archive folder. Our Snoring Bite, the original Bite Splint, and the scenes are all in one place. This is all thanks to the handy Continue Working feature. Thank you all so much for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions about this video or any of the other ones, just write them down in the comments below and I will answer them. Thanks again for your time and I wish you a great rest of the week. Goodbye.